Hamilton to participate by teleconference. Any discussion? All those in favor? 6-0. Welcome, Ms. Hamilton. We now have a quorum of that 6 of 7 are present in person, and we have one board member, Ms. Hamilton, participating by teleconference.
Thank you all.
Welcome. Item 1.04 is Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Dr. Ratliff to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.04 is approval of the meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman and board leaders, it's a robust agenda, and we have quite a bit from catch up in terms of closed session tonight. So you will have seen some items that have been added and some that may have been removed. I just ask that you'll thank you for your patience and allowing some fluidity in terms of additional items to the budget. But thank you for that, and I recommend that we approve it at some point.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second. Have a motion by Ms. Lowe and a second by Mr. Henderson to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.01 is public comment. I'll first call on those individuals who have signed in to speak. And you should have read the rules on public comment. For the ones that are in the room that can hear, Ms. Caudill will be our timekeeper, and at 2.5 minutes, the light will change. And at that time, you will be given 30 seconds to wrap up and conclude your public comment. Brad Ford.
Good evening, I'm Brad Ford. I teach a course at Holston High School and Damascus Middle School, and I'm co-president of the Washington County Education Association. I want to begin by sincerely thanking this board and our central office administration for your continued support of teachers, faculty, and staff through this ongoing crisis. Among many other things that have taken place, mostly behind the scenes, this board voted to give contracted employees a substantial one-time stipend last month. Not only was that an incredible gesture, it also came at a much-needed time for my family and many others, I'm sure. I cannot adequately express my sincere gratitude for that and the other efforts you've undertaken and continue to undertake in all this mess. I also want to thank you, Dr. Noe, for your email and allowing staff to bring their children into the building this week. I've heard from teachers about the added stress of trying to find childcare during this rather sudden pivot to all virtual, so I'm grateful that this matter was addressed. I'd also like to ask if this board would consider discussing the possibility of extending this allowance beyond the first part of this week. Besides the need to find child care, if proper mitigation strategies are followed, then it's almost certain that such an environment would be safer, indeed likely much safer, than most other child care options available. In addition, my stepson attends Glade Spring Middle School and was an AB student until this year. Unfortunately, he lacks the internal motivation to self-regulate and complete assignments in an all-virtual format, and is now in danger of failing 8th grade. In talking with other teachers, I've learned that this same dramatic shift is infecting many students of Washington County Public Schools staff. They aren't immune from falling behind, even if their parent is a teacher. Allowing our children to sit in our classrooms will go a long way towards improving what is the ticking time bomb of student achievement gaps on the horizon, as it will be easier to keep those children engaged in online learning in our classrooms as opposed to having them away from us. Let me stop here to briefly say that the staff at Glade Middle, including Principal Hockett, have gone above and beyond to help my stepson get back on track. The fault here is not theirs. It's just yet another non-virus related byproduct of our response to COVID-19. In my opinion, any arguments about the fairness of this policy completely miss the mark. In our county, like the rest of the world, there is discrepancy in every aspect of life. If we as a school division have an opportunity to do something to improve the lives of our staff and or students during this pandemic, and if it can be done safely, and in this case without additional cost, even if that something doesn't help everyone, we should do it. There are a lot of staff in Washington County who have school-age children. Beyond the very real relief allowing this wonderful policy to continue will bring us, you can make a difference in the lives of a significant portion of students who are struggling with all this change. I urge you all to consider letting our children sit in our classrooms for the duration of this return and any future returns to virtual instruction. Thank you all again for all you do for Washington County Schools.
For the folks out in the hall, I'm gonna alter the schedule just a minute. We have some young people in here that are to be recognized tonight, and it's a cold night. And I'm gonna move and get that out of the agenda, and then I'll start on public comment again. Thank you. We're gonna move down to item 3.01 is VSBA art contest participants and second place winners. I'd like to move forward and do that, and then after that recognition, we'll get back to public comment. Dr. Ratliff, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. You know, it's always a great pleasure to recognize our students. It makes it very difficult to do this in a mask, but it makes it very difficult to share our recognition in the format that we're in, and we're just so grateful that our students have participated and worked so hard. The Southwest Virginia region winners are going to be announced to you in just a moment, and I'll have Dr. Noe show you their artwork, and it's just been incredible. We actually had this year 2 second place winners in the entire Southwest region, so obviously I know that everyone is so very proud. And I'll start with youngest to oldest, if that will suit everyone. Tonight we have Braden Colson. Braden, if you'll come forward here, we'll make sure we social distance, but Braden is a budding artist among other things. He's quite the talented young man, but Braden won second place at the elementary school level for the entire Region 7, the Southwest region. And so if you'll show that and then maybe let other people see that too, Dr. Noe. Absolutely beautiful. Grand champion in our eyes, Braden. And so we're so proud of you, and I know that you all would like to. Braden, if you'll stay put, usually the old folks around here, we like to say nice things to you, okay? So if you'll just stay put right there for a minute, okay? And then also tonight we have, are you okay with being there? I'll get somebody else up there with you so you won't be on the spot too long. He's a cool guy. Ariana Turner, who is the second place winner. Ariana, if you'll come forward, from E.B. Stanley Middle School. And we are so proud to have her, and she is a second place winner in the entire Southwest region, and Dr. Noe is displaying her artwork today. I already talked with her. I need to talk to Braden about purchasing. Dr. Lester put these in frames, so that makes it even more tempted for us to battle to who buy the artwork from them. But what a beautiful a piece of art there that Ariana has done. It's pretty incredible on both of their parts, so I know that everyone's very proud. We're also happy to have Ms. Ellis here tonight, and with Ariana, and on behalf of Ariana, and also Mr. Colson. Did I miss any other teachers or staff here? And parents, we're so happy, and I know you're so very proud, and as you should be. So thank you for coming out on a cold and now, when we came in snowy night, to be here. We also had one more before we give them their good accolades. We also have one more student by the name of Sarah Burnett, and Sarah's not here tonight, but Sarah was also a participant. Dr. Noe, if you don't mind, will you share that with the board? That Sarah was also a participant, and she was selected as our high school recipient.
Is that a high school, did you say, Dr. Ratliff?
Yes, and that's absolutely gorgeous there. That one my wife's going to want to. But that's Sarah Burnett, Abingdon High School, and she was our winner in representation at the regional level. So those are your winners. We're so very, very proud, and I think it's always good for us to have the opportunity. Dr. Brandon just took a great picture of you. And we will, if it's okay, I think it'd be good to, at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, but I know we'll want to do our traditional applause, but if you will, I'll leave that up to you. So,
Anybody have comments that Mr. Blaine?
I'll start. As I look at those two pictures, it's just like both of those animals are here in the room with us. I mean, they are so lifelike, the representations. And I'm always amazed at artists, because I've never been an artist and never will be an artist. So I'm always amazed at anybody who can draw anything, and those are just phenomenal. And so congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you. You've represented your school, your family, and your artistic nature very well. And I just urge you to continue that. Whatever else that you determine to do in life, never give up that dream, because if you have that type of talent, please continue on with it. And you can always find time to do that. Even if you pursue other dreams and other things that you want to do, just take the time to do that. It's important for people to do things they like to do instead of things that you just have to do sometimes. Congratulations.
This is a lifetime, you've heard of lifetime sports like bowling, golf. This is a lifetime deal that you guys can do and continue to do up to the day that you can't do anything else. And I can't draw a stick man, and I'm jealous, but I'm glad there's folks like you that really take time, and you can see that you. How long, young lady, how long did it take you to actually complete that drawing?
Like, maybe a week.
What'd you say?
A week.
A week? Well, I couldn't have done it with the numbers, you know. Where you but congratulations. How about you, young man? How long did it take you to complete yours?
I don't even remember drawing this.
Oh, well, see right there, I couldn't have done that. But anyway, congratulations. We're very proud, and I'm sure your teachers, your administrators, your parents, grandparents, and everyone else are very proud of you. And keep up the good work. Thank you.
Nice job, guys, and thanks for representing us out there in the world. Everybody knows Washington County has really vibrant arts programs, and you all show that every day. And thank you to your teachers and your families for coming out tonight. It's so nice to see students and see people out with us. So you all take care and enjoy drawing.
Yeah, congratulations, Ariana and Brandon. The competition in Washington County, we've got a really good program, and y'all know that, and y'all are products of it. So your competition here in Washington County, just to be the second place, is really great. So, but to be the VSBA, that you did really good. So thank y'all for the efforts y'all put forth in order to get what you get. Thank you. And parents, thank y'all.
Ms. Hamilton, I know you're not here tonight to see the artwork, and I hate you missed it and see these students, but is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I wish I could see them, and I will eventually. I just want to say thank you, too, for bringing us some good news, especially during challenging times right now. And that good news was brought to us because you were willing to express yourself, and that takes a lot of bravery, and so thank you both.
Thank you. Both of you, congratulations, and I appreciate you coming out tonight and letting us share this with you. As Ms. Hamilton said, it's certainly good to see good news in these times, and you both done such a wonderful job. You know, that folks like you are the reason that we realize that our arts are so important in the schools, and that's why we support them so much. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank the parents and teachers and principals and all the support, and you folks make sure you thank those people also for their support. But at this time, we're going to give you guys thank you. You guys have anything you want to say? All right. Well, y'all have a good night. You're certainly welcome to stay, and if you would like to leave, you're certainly welcome to do so. Thank you for being here.
See you all. Bye, buddy. Good job.
All right, we'll move back to item 2.01, public comment. The next individual signed up to speak is Scott Boggs. Yes.
Guys, thank you. Thank you to the board. I spoke here one time previously, a few years ago, and I know I've been on a few boards myself. I know how tough it is, giving up your time in the evenings to come here, particularly in this type of environment where it is a trying time. So I want to start by saying thank you guys for just, hearing us out, letting us, kind of bring some issues to you guys that I think that is important to us in the community. And you've heard it all year, as when this thing hit in the spring. And I'm here to speak, I kind of came on short notice, don't have anything prepared, but I'm here to speak on behalf of my son and a couple of these kids out here that are basketball players that have been playing at Abingdon for years, okay? They're also baseball players. So in the spring, at the crux of their junior season that they built up for since they were 8 years old, this thing hit and it canceled their season. Probably would have won the state or competed for the state. Very, very talented. They're also extraordinarily good basketball players. So now, as they prepared all year for this again, okay, I know we've had a flare-up. I've had COVID. Okay, I'm a COVID survivor. All right, so I understand that this is real, and I understand that this has affected the community. But what I also understand is that most of the doctors, including Dr. Fauci, has said that schools should be open. I know there's some decision-making guidelines as far as new cases and other things, but I also know that the amount of spread in the schools is very low, and the amount of spread outside the schools typically is very low. So what I'm speaking on, again, on behalf of my son, because I think that they deserve a season. Okay, some form or fashion, they deserve to be able to play. The area around us, Wise County, Scott County, I believe, they're proceeding. They're going on, they're traveling with their season. The guidelines are in place from the state, 25 people in the gym. I think those are good guidelines. We can work around those. All right. I think that would keep everyone safe. Okay, these kids are going to be playing regardless. If they shut them down now, where they're in a structured environment, because that's what the school will provide, a very structured, safe environment, they will go play somewhere else. They will go to Tennessee and they'll play in a gym there. They will play. So it's not preventing the spread. All right, it's not. I mean, they love the game. They work too hard and they're passionate about it. So they will go somewhere else and play. I think that the safest thing to do would provide an opportunity or an environment for them to play under the structure of the state guidelines and to compete against their rivals in their senior year. Yeah, this is it for these guys. They will not play anymore. They build up for this year. Yes, sir.
Mr. Boggs, your time is through.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next individual signed in to speak is Aaron Williams.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Ratliff, my name is Aaron Williams, and I am the head boys basketball coach at Abingdon High School. I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak with concerning extracurricular activities in Washington County schools for this year. Let me start by saying I do not view you as the enemy. I have great sympathy and empathy for your position. I'm sure none of you ran for this position to shut down sports in Washington County schools, and being a former principal at a high school, I can relate to many people coming to you from many different angles. The president of our country has to consider his experts when it comes to disease control, but he also has to consider his experts when it comes to the nation's economy. My goal is to give you some information that will help you make a better informed decision. When I was a young man, we had 3 older sisters in the church, Sister Dot, Sister Maud, and Sister Orby. Whenever I missed a church function like a worship service or a wake service and they saw me, they always got on to me for missing by saying, "Aaron,
I guess you weren't here because you were out playing ball. That's what they would always say to me. And I would always try to somewhat be futile in my attempts to explain to them that I was actually doing my job, which entailed much more than just playing ball. If I had to summarize my mission as a coach with my players and my team, it's to instill within them a growth mindset. I could discuss this topic for hours, but under the time limit constraints, I'll give you the highlights. I know if my players obtain a growth mindset, this will serve them in every class they will ever take in college, as husbands in their relationship, as fathers of their children one day, hopefully, as members and organizations in their church and communities. This mindset will serve them, that will be effective for them hopefully for 30, 40, and 50 years down the road. It will potentially give them courage to make aggressive decisions and not be controlled by fear of making mistakes. It will potentially give them courage to get out of their comfort zones. Playing ball is just the vehicle in this education process. We use the word shape to build our culture. We misspell a little bit, but it stands for spirit, communication, hustle, approach, precision, and enhance. We have named our captains already this year for each category and shape, and we know that adversity will be our best friend to teach lessons, and adverse situations throughout the season will yield the greatest fruit from which to grow. This team has actually already listed advance through adversity as a team motto. By not participating this year, this is what we're cutting off. I'll say it again, by not participating this year, we're cutting these things off. The consequences and choices are generational. It's much more than just playing ball.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I have additional things I can maybe share in an email to you, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next individual is Jake O'Quinn.
Hello everyone, my name is Jake O'Quinn and I'm a senior at Abingdon High School, and I'm here to simply ask you some things to consider while you discuss your decision during and after tonight's meeting. I'm asking each of you to reconsider your upcoming possible decision to suspend the winter sports seasons. I would like you all to realize that the regular high school season will be much safer than the option of being forced to play out of state or in travel leagues. Also, with many other teams in our districts moving on with their own seasons, the opportunity to play later in next year doesn't seem to be possible to me. I feel certain that coaches and players will be more than willing to conduct the necessary procedures to ensure our own well-being as well as the community's safety. We all understand that during a global pandemic, getting to play a sport may not seem important to most people, but please know to us it means more than anything. For my conclusion, I would like to say that we know our basketball season school year would not be what we had always dreamed of. It's going to be different, and even at those, risks, we completely are down for anything to get to play. And not just to play, we want to be able to go to school and enjoy our senior year during these hard times. And we know it's hard, but we just want you to consider our feelings. We know that this year may not consist of senior nights, pep rallies, student sections, large crowds, and after-game celebrations, and just quality time with fans, with friends, teammates, teachers, fellow classmates. Please consider not taking away what little bit of a dream we have left during our last year of high school. Thank you for your time.
Next individual is Brant Boggs.
Good evening. My name is Brant Boggs, and I'm a senior at Abingdon High School. I play basketball and baseball, and I'm here tonight to ask you to please consider allowing us to play sports. We will do anything to play, whether that means wearing masks the whole time or having no fans. I'm just asking you to please let us do what we have worked for all these years. I'm going to end this by asking you to not only think of this year, but to also think about all of the hard work and dedication that all of us have put in throughout the past 7 or 8 years. Thank you for your time, and thank you for working hard and making the hard decisions for our county.
Next individual is Jake Thacker.
Hi, my name is Jake Thacker. I'm a senior at Abingdon High School. I'm begging each of you to reconsider your decision to suspend the winter sports season. Please realize that a regular high school season would be much safer than the option of being forced to play travel ball. With other teams in our districts moving on with their season, the opportunity to play later on is not possible. I feel certain that coaches would be willing to do the necessary contact tracing to ensure our well-being as well as the public safety. I know that during a global pandemic, getting to play a sport may not seem important, but please know to us it is very important. It is also something that we can do that is safe for us and our environment. We know our last season isn't going to be what we've always dreamed of. No senior night, no student section cheering us on, no pep rallies or after-game celebrations. But please don't take what little dream we have left away from us. I would also like to add that sports are much more than just the games. Sports teach us so many valuable life lessons that cannot be learned sitting at a computer doing virtual learning at your house. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next individual is Keisha O'Quinn.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here today to beg you to please let extracurricular activities continue even though we have returned to virtual instruction. My senior son plays basketball and was supposed to officially start practice today. It's looking like he may not have a season, and that is devastating. Life is hard right now, especially for kids, and I feel like they need as much normalcy as they can get. He's played basketball since he was in 3rd grade. A few points I'd like to make are this. They're going to play ball by going to another state, where there are bigger crowds, more games, and higher infection rates. They've been practicing for weeks at the school with little to no issues. Trust them to focus on safety and take necessary precautions. The kids and coaches are invested and want to play, and would have been practicing and playing while the rest of the kids are out 2 weeks for Christmas. The governor has already set rules by limiting fans, and there's rules for masks and distancing. The rest of the teams in our district are proceeding. How sad would it be if Abingdon and John Battle don't get a season, but they do? Seasons can't be rescheduled. Please don't take this away from them. Their senior year has been so screwed up to this point already. They need this. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Next individual is Hope Thacker.
Hello. First of all, I want to thank you guys for allowing our kids to go back to school for the last few weeks. I have 2 children, and it was extremely beneficial for both of them, and truly helped them both feel like they kind of have an idea of what's going on in their classes. I also want to thank you for creating such a safe environment. I have friends in other school systems, and Washington County seems like it has set the bar high, and I guess that's why we have had no transmissions at school. But I'm here to talk about sports, and I'm going to be another one of those crazy sport parents. I just want to tell you my perspective. Thursday night, my son came home, and he said, "Mom, tomorrow night there's a party." Sorry, guys, that's what's going on. Okay, I wasn't throwing it, and I wasn't condoning it. But my son said, "I'm not going." He's like, "I'm not going to risk getting sick, and I'm not going to risk getting quarantined by going to a party." I said, "Fair enough. I agree." He said, "Because you know what? We're just a few days from basketball season starting." And he also didn't want to miss any school. Friday morning, he texted me early that morning, and he said, "I have finally pulled my statistics grade up to an A." He said, "I'm so excited." I said, "That's awesome, because being back in school, even though only 2 days a week, has truly helped him so much." Now, I know you guys are frazzled, and I think it's wonderful that teachers' kids get to go to work with them, okay? I have a different perspective. My life isn't like that right now. I mean, I get up extra early in the morning. I help my little one do school on the days he's virtual, and then I go to school with adjusted hours and work a long day. It's a hard time right now. I have a big heart for you guys. I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for the good job you're doing. I just think creating safe things for our kids to do is healthy right now. They can't be expected to just hoard up in a bedroom. It's not good for them mentally, and it's not good for them physically, and it's just not good for them, it's not good for us. So I'm asking you all to please consider letting sports move forward as soon as possible so that they can have some type of normalcy in their life. And I just believe it's the safest possibility is to play high school sports and not try to search for other options. Thank you, guys.
Next individual is Autumn Boggs.
Good evening. My name's Autumn Boggs. My son Brant Boggs spoke. He's a senior, as he said, at Abingdon High School. He's a 4.0 student. He's always done really well in school. He struggled this year being virtual. He's in some very hard classes, and he's trying the best he can to teach himself, and he's been positive through it with the hopes of being able to come back a few days a week. So that I've seen a big improvement of just the 2 days of being able to interact. I just wanted to say I'm writing to beg you all to reconsider letting the extracurricular activities and sports go forward. I understand that contact tracing is an issue, but with our sports teams, they're very small, and they're small groups of kids that are easy to manage. I know that Mountain 7 is moving forward. How will our kids get to do what they are trained and worked for since they were 7? The BHSL is allowing sports and our competitors. I'm just asking Washington County to please consider that. Honestly, spend each day, one of my prayers is for my son's mental well-being, because when you've had something your whole life you've worked for and it's taken away, it's very hard on these students. And I'm not downplaying COVID. My husband also spoke. We all have had COVID in our family, and we have friends right now that are fighting for their lives. So we aren't trying to say that it's not real or not something, but they're willing to do anything they can to just get to have a season. They've limited their contacts with, they only stay in their little bubble of their team. They're trying to avoid getting out and spreading. They're trying to wear masks. They're willing to do anything they can just to be able to have a season. I just thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next individual is Garrett Thacker.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Garrett Thacker, and I was just wanting to read a few things to you guys. We use the word shape to build our culture. We misspell it a little bit, and it stands for spirit, communication, hustle, approach, precision, and enhance. We've named our captains for the season. Each category and shape that depends on. Adversity will be our best friend to teach lessons in adverse situations throughout the season. Will yield the greatest fruit for which these boys and girls can grow. This team has actually already listed advance through its adversity as a team motto. By not participating in this year is what we're cutting off. It's more than just playing ball with these kids. The kids on the team have a very supportive parent and lifestyle of their own. They only get one shot for these formative years, and I strongly feel not supplying them with this part of their education will be letting them down. The cost of not playing will affect these students mentally and emotionally. When we teach our kids virtually, at least we're giving them some of the education. But with the extracurricular activities being cut off, it stops. It's just a one-shot deal. I understand the health department wanting to eliminate as many things as they can to keep from the spread of the virus. But it can be argued it is more likely to spread the community in the schools or in the athletic events. Sports with a large number of players on a team may increase the likelihood of the spread. Compared to sports with fewer teams, we can identify small groups and keep them together and separated into practices. Virginia, okay, according to the CDC, COVID-19 cases and the deaths by state in the last 7 days, in average cases per 100,000 in Virginia is 46 out of 50. Virginia is 32.1 per out of 100,000 compared to the Tennessee, who's 72 per 100,000, which just finished their state football playoffs last night. When you look at the death rate for the age group, it's from 5 to 17 is 0.1%. In reality, it's justification. It's not really justification to cancel the entire season. Transportation death rates to and from events in ages 5 and 17 would actually make more sense in looking at the numbers. I had some things prepared. These statements here was from Coach Williams, and I just thought his points were needed to be heard. I'm just a normal dude, man, trying to do everything they can for their kid and stand up for what he feels right. I see the love and the passion him and others have put into it, and that's all I'm about, man. I think you guys have done a great job making a super safe environment for these kids in school. I mean, I work in Tennessee and live in Virginia, and I've seen the differences. And I mean, what you've done has worked. I just feel a little bit of interaction and the playing. When you see how much they put into it, it's hard to see everything. Because like I said, you're just a senior one time. I appreciate y'all listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's all the individuals that have signed in. I don't think we've missed anyone, have we? Caldwell, can you see it?
That's it.
Includes a public comment section of the meeting, and we've already completed item 3.01, so we'll move to item 4 is the consent agenda. There's several items on the consent agenda. There's actually 11 items. Are there any of those items that any board member wishes to remove and talk about specifically? If there are none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve 4.01 through 4.08 consent agenda.
11.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm sorry, I did too many over there. 4.01 through 4.11.
Have a motion by Mr. Brooks and a second by Mr. Henderson to approve the consent agenda. That includes items 4.01 through 4.11. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Item 5 is first reading policies for consideration. There's 4 on there tonight, and looks like they're all Dr. Noyes. So I guess I'll just start and ask the board, are there specific policies that you wish to talk about or discuss with Dr. Noyes before we proceed?
Mr. Chair, if there's no discussion, I would move that we approve the policies under item 5 on first reading, 501 through 5.04.
Have a motion by Ms. Love and a second by Mr. Henderson that we approve the first reading policies for consideration, items 5.01 through 5.04. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Item 6.01 is the fund summary. Are there questions or comments or concerns for Ms. Caldwell about the fund summary? We have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. Fleener that we approve the fund summary. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Item 7, the superintendent's report. Dr. Ashby, you have 4 items listed there, and I'll just let you start with 7.01 and work your way through them.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'll try to move through as quickly as I can. The first item on superintendent's report tonight is regarding the legislative Zoom meeting. I sent out the notice to you. I hope you received it. If you didn't, I certainly will. I've made myself a note to resend it tomorrow morning. So it'll be helpful and fresh to you to be able to pull up the Zoom meeting. If you wish to participate in the legislative Zoom, we do have a few of our legislators who have agreed to meet with us as if we've done, as if in same manner, similar manner, not in person. that we've done before when we've met at the Veterans Center. That Zoom meeting with superintendents and now certainly by invitation to the board leaders across Southwest Virginia, or in particularly in Region 7, is to be held Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. And again, I'll resend that to you probably tonight, but at least by tomorrow morning, so you'll have that available on Wednesday if you wish to participate. The format by which we will follow will be similar to what we followed in times past. Just as a note, part of that discussion that I intended really to put on here, but I knew we were going to discuss this as well, is that the superintendent's proposed budget that will follow the governor, a much more important role. The governor's proposed budget for the state should be out next week. It's targeted for December 16th. We don't anticipate getting any information until at least the 18th, right, Ms. Caldwell, or probably the Monday, the 21st. In terms of any kind of breakdown, that's the way it typically has gone in the past. So we'll keep you apprised of that. I'm trying to send you legislative information, and if there's any new information, I'll send that to you tomorrow as well. I know you get some things from VSBA, but I'll send you the vast legislative positions as well. I think I've sent those early on, but I will make sure you have those in your possession. And you don't need to let us know if you're going to participate. We'll see you if you're there. But I plan to participate and be there on Wednesday night. I am not speaking this time. I don't plan to unless I'm asked a question. Inclement weather procedures I shared with you at the last board meeting that we would have those. We've had a snow day since that time. We are still, the reason I haven't given that information to you, we still need to develop that. I'll just kind of give you a general idea with us going remote at least through the end of the semester, which is for us next Friday. This won't apply. I will tell you just in general, and Dr. Noe and Dr. Wallace jump in at any point that you see that I may have left out something. It basically, some people in the region have, first of all, we got something back on October 9th that described a remote learning day or a virtual learning day as having certain considerations that have to be made. And I sent that out to you for your view, for some of you who have asked about it, or people have asked you about it. That October 9 superintendent's memo clearly said that you had to have certain considerations. Chiefly among them is the notion that you have to provide meals. So meal provision and equity across the board in order to determine it to be a remote learning day. There's been so much virtual transition back to virtual, and so many considerations that have had to be made at the state level. The flexibility exists now, even since that time, more so than it had before. So there can be some consideration for remote learning days. Some people have chosen just to follow the snow day schedule because in most cases we've already been told that the waivers will be in place. For us here in Washington County, after meeting and talking about the possibilities, having conversations with State Superintendent's Office, we felt like in general it's best to have kind of two scenarios here, and that's it, not having all these codes. One would be when we're back in school, and I'll just keep saying when we have the opportunity to be back in person. And I'll look for that opportunity. We would have a time where it would be schools closed. If schools are closed, that means it's an inclement weather day. If the remote learning day is announced, that means that instruction will be provided during the inclement weather day. So those are the only two classifications to try to keep it simple, that it would be either a closed remote learning day or just schools closed. And schools closed, it will be announced, and then instruction is not going to be provided on that inclement weather day. We've already experienced one of those beforehand. But that's kind of where we are with that. We need to work on some development of this before we get this out procedurally. It will not apply, we know, until at least our January 4th meeting, if not later than that.
Dr. Ralph, are we obligated if we do a remote Learning Day, are we obligated to deliver lunches and things of that nature?
Or, well, that was part of the problem, is that we understood that that's the case, that you'd have to be able to provide the meals in order to count it as a remote learning day. Obviously, there are going to be times where you might be closed and it may be iffy in the morning and you could have delivered them in the afternoon, or maybe vice versa. There could have been those kind of issues. In talking with the state superintendent's office, and particularly our representative at the state level, assistant superintendent, he has indicated that there's going to be flexibility, that it is our obligation to make the attempt to do that. What we have done is we would make the efforts if we know in advance, for example, that we're going to have a snowstorm come. I'm just going to use that as an example, and you all jump in if you can think of other things that we've had these discussions about, if you don't mind. But if you have an advance notice that you have a 6 to 10 inch snowstorm coming your way and you know you're going to shut down, then you go ahead and call those remote learning days. And what we would do is provide the meals in advance like we do, like we're going to be doing now. We're going to have pickups.
If we do that, that would be
yes, sir.
A smart deal.
Yeah, we would do that. Mrs. Cupp's already prepared to do that to a large degree as best she can.
Only thing concerns me a little bit when we talk about a substantial amount of snowfall and you do remote days, I think about power outages, and teachers and students have the inability to provide instruction. So,
yes, sir.
You know, and
That's why you'd have a class.
if we're anything like, if this winter's going to be anything like 1st of December's been, it might be a rough winter. So
That's
well,
all.
it's just something to keep in mind.
That's all part of the plan.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
That's why we have the 2 classifications.
Dr. Brand.
Categories, I should say.
Just 2 classifications. What about in-person snow schedule days?
Oh, you mean with delayed openings? Those would still stand as 2-hour delays. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Those would still, I'm sorry. I was talking about the closed category. For closed, there'd be only 2 classifications for closed. Closed remote learning and closed schools closed. No instruction. So everything else will be the same. Sorry about
Just during
that.
virtual, right?
I misspoke. Thank you for bringing that.
That's pretty much during virtual anyway, isn't it? Or it would be all the time, but.
I'm not sure I understand the question, Mr. Mead.
Would that be those 2 classifications if we were only virtual as we are now? Or would it be just those 2 classifications if we were virtual or in person?
In person, both.
Okay.
Yeah. For closures. So Dr. Brandon's question and now point that needed to be made is that we would still follow for purposes of delayed opening for in-person instruction, that would still be followed as normal. So that was, I apologize, I misspoke. It's only for those closed categories. And we have remote learning. It's already been asked of me this evening about this. I mean, in many cases, if it's going to be a remote learning day, it's going to be closed. The teachers are going to be home, so they're going to be teaching from home or wherever it is. And in many of those cases, as we do now, 12-month staff appears. So what we do is we open it up for teachers if they could, because some of them have difficulty with internet connection and would prefer an environment where they could be working in one of our school buildings, provided that they follow all the mitigation, and they could do their remote learning from the school location. So we would open that up for them if we're open, and they're able to do that. We'd still caution them to do that during inclement weather. A lot of school systems. The reason there's been a little bit of delay and a little bit of change here. A lot of school systems are having conversations about just making all of them remote learning days. There's also different places across the Commonwealth that are saying we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and if it's a closed day and it's not safe and we can't provide meals and do some of the other things, and the whole issue of connectivity, whether it's power or other connectivity issues, that they may consider just keeping with what they have. And so that each of them have different codes. But for us, we're trying to make it simple. But by forgetting to include the delayed schedule piece, I obviously didn't make it sound simple, but from a closure standpoint, it'll be those 2 categories. Anything else that you all need to add, Dr. Nye? Lots of discussion. There's some backup for that in terms of, particularly if we come back, or when we come back in person, there's some backup for that as to what it's going to look like instructionally and those expectations. And we'll make sure that you're provided with that documentation as well.
I was just thinking that the TV stations were going to run out of room in their scrolls
Yeah.
to explain what we're doing. But that does, kidding about that. But I must say that I think it's really, really, really important that we define what this means over and over again whenever we change things, so that people know where to get the information that says this is exactly how we define this day in advance for the parents and the caregivers and the staff who are trying to deal with it. So just remember, people are scrambling around before they go to bed at night trying to figure it out for tomorrow. So.
And one thing about it, I will say this, and I learned this the hard way. Instead of having these codes, let's just put it out there. Let's say what we need to do, what we're going to do. Instead of code A, code B, code blue, code red, whatever. Let's just put it out there what we're going to do. If we're going to be 2 hours late, virtual or whatever. But I think that's how we need to do it. That's just my opinion.
I'm waiting on some feedback from the state with our proposed plan, so that's causing a little bit of a delay for tonight. But point's well taken, all of it is. In terms of the messaging, I know, joking about how big it is and scrolling across, I was contacted by Olivia Bailey at WCYB, and I'm sure we'll be talking with WJHL, the two dominant stations here locally, and they've already made arrangements for that to get a complete understanding. It's across the board. Here's what this means. Here's what this means. And that's it. So they're working with us to have that clean. So from now to next Friday, we know it's going to be remote. Athletics. The reason athletics is on there is really part and parcel to another discussion we're going to have in a minute with the Finance Committee. The main purpose on there is a couple of reasons. One is from a budget standpoint, athletics, obviously there are going to be less expenditures in terms of athletics, but there's also going to be tremendous loss. So I do, as part of our discussion in a few minutes, I want to share our discussion with Finance Committee about something that we could do to help in that regard, and I think it's something that we really need to consider. They are going to be affected by that. Also, in terms of games, of course, you heard a lot of comments tonight in public comment, primarily in one location at one sport, but I will say this before I make any comments about suspension of games and activity that's gone on since Friday. And I have several bits of information I need to share with you tonight. But I will say this about all our kids, and I hope that you find this appropriate to do so. The students, of course, the parents, and anybody speaking in public comment is respected for what they say, and so it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. But I want to say this about our kids. They have done exactly what they said they'd done tonight. I want to say that about them. And the gentlemen who spoke tonight are doing exactly what their parents have said that they're doing. As far as I can tell, they have reached out to us. Several of them met with Dr. Noe today, and they're very, very sincere and very committed to doing everything they can. They've been a good role model in the schools for exactly what they shared tonight about mitigation. From what I can understand, at least the ones that I know that spoke tonight. So I want to make kudos to them and reinforce their sincerity and their maturity and their commitment to doing things the right way. So I did want to say that tonight. I hope you don't mind that editorial, but we understand. We understand like no one's business. I mean, not just because I coached and I was a part of all of this, and I was a participant, and like many of you have done and were, and maybe have grandchildren and other people involved in these kind of things. we have unbelievable empathy for them. And we know what they're experiencing, and our heart goes out to all of our young folks, whether it's athletics or any other co-curricular, extracurricular activity, their school life, their inability, the capacity that is not retained for them to interact in a way that they find to be fun. It's difficult, and we feel it with them. We really do, and good kids. So we hate it for them that this has happened. The Virginia High School League has not ruled. I don't anticipate that they will rule anytime soon in terms of what might happen. When you, as stated tonight, when it came around in the spring, that was a governor's executive order that closed down spring sports. We all didn't know what in the world we're doing, and some days we still don't know what we're doing. Each day is another day. It's what my son-in-law calls load management. Manage the load, take the decisions, make the best decisions, as we've said, all of you have said, our board chair has said this repeatedly. I've said this repeatedly. We make the best decisions with the best information we have at the time. And that has not been enjoyable. It is not enjoyable to make that because you cannot make forecasts. You cannot make decisions about what's going to happen next. And so when they're talking about an already shortened season tonight, they're right. It's already shortened. Then you're going to run into January where you're going to run into inclement weather issues and have problems and concerns about that as to whether or not you can get competition in. I had, as part of the letter that went out on Friday, to include, based on the recommendation from the Virginia Department of Health, and specifically our Mount Rogers District Health doctor, I spoke with the director at around 10:30 this morning and had a group meeting with Mount Rogers District superintendents at 3:30. And on both occasions, it was clear and emphatic that the advice and the recommendation coming from the Virginia Department of Health included, as you know, in the press release, included advice to go virtual during this time. And that there would be no sports and activity, to suspend those activities. The commentary and the explanation behind that from a public health standpoint, I never do proper justice, but I'll do the best I can. In looking at that, this is above and beyond our safety protocol. I hope everybody understands that and sees that. I'm not an expert at it, but bigger than this is it's not just about contact tracing and mitigation strategies in our schoolhouses and our gymnasiums. It is about, in the words of our health department director and other health officials we spoke to today, it's about what's unchecked. And we've said this before, and here's what I mean by that. Our mitigation strategies for what we've been able to do, and I appreciate the commentary tonight, and I agree. And you know, I'll flat out tell you what I think about that. We have been far from perfect, and we have had issues, and we do have situations where people pull their masks down. We do have situations where we have smaller children who really struggle. But by and large, our school community, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, I want you to, but by and large, our school community has done a beautiful job, and they've really made a good faith effort. Our teachers, and particularly front lines, are constantly reminding, they're following that. They're being role models for kids in that regard. And so we've really, really worked hard. And so some of what the manifestation of that is, yes, what we mean by within school transmission that hasn't taken place until today, by the way, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But there hasn't been school outbreaks. If you look on the school outbreaks, as defined by the VDH, we haven't had any of that. So we have been doing a really good job with what we know and what means we have. Honestly, we really have. But what we have to understand now is our greatest mitigation strategy is suspended. what we have in front of us now is an obligation to understand and to make notifications, to talk about quarantines, to know what those positive case, because we don't do the case investigations. The Department of Health continues to do those. We come alongside them, we help. But now the burden of responsibility, for a lack of other phrasing, rests on organizations, and it would rest on our school community. And it is not because there's not an effort, or even if we have the staffing to do that, we don't really have the expertise and the ability in place and the mechanisms in place to be able to follow that from a community perspective. So it's not about the school community making a decision not to do something, to take away or whatever it is about responding to the fact that we've lost our most effective resource in mitigation. I hope there's a real clear understanding of that for everyone. I've had to come to that. I'll stop. I'll pause because I know you want to ask me a question. I don't want
Did
you to.
Dr. Shelton give the superintendents today any indication when they could maybe start back the contact tracing?
She did not. Well, she gave us some scenarios by which that might be reactivated, or reinstated. So I'll explain those. I don't want to back up one step, if you don't mind, Mr. Henderson, with that. No, just in terms of along the same lines, but just back up one step from that. She had indicated to us, and by the way, we're understanding that the Lenawisco, am I saying that right? Lenawisco Cumberland District, within the next 24 hours or so, is going to have something similar come out. So I did want to, and I asked if I could say that. So I'm letting you know that there's additional districts that are having to make the same tough decisions and the same tough recommendations. Whether it'll be the same degree and the same wording, I don't know. But I do know as of today that has been communicated to us that other people are going to have to make this decision, and I'll circle back to that in a moment. It's because I want to answer your question. She said that, she being Dr. Shelton, said all along, first of all, she's been a champion for us in schools, and I hope, like it or don't, she has looked for every way possible that she can support and protect. So if she felt like she could protect and communicate that and have that real strong layers of protection that we've enjoyed, it hasn't been perfect. Again, we've had issues, and we still have issues. We have people that get quarantined. That's out there. That's the way it is. It's going to happen. It's happened to some of you all. Some of our families have experienced it. Some of us have been quarantined because I haven't, but I mean, I've self-quarantined because we make those decisions to help protect. Well, when you don't have that in place, it makes it really, really difficult to go forward in the manner that we've been going forward. So that's where we are on that. She has said all along that she will tell us when they get to the point to where the capacity is such that they can no longer help protect us in that regard. On Thursday, she called us first before anyone else and met with the superintendents grieving because she had to tell us, we cannot protect you anymore. Here's what we can do. And I told you I would tell you when that would happen. So to answer your question, Mr. Henderson, today she said that she will do in like manner when she feels like that there'll be the capacity to start picking up some of the tracing, some of the quarantine notifications and exposure notifications, and accountability, to be frank, the accountability for that, because there's a trust factor here that when you have people self-report, that you're going to lose some of your ability to help. Hey, we're not trying to be in control, but in order to manage, you have to have that mechanism in place. So that is what she said today, in general, that she would tell us that just as transparent as she's been about everything else. She'll be the same way with that. She will let us know. The next layer to that, if you don't mind, I'll go to the next layer of that. The next layer is there was some discussion today about when that might occur. She doesn't have a crystal ball any more than anyone else. I sent you all some vaccination schedule. There has been a lot of conversation about a vaccination. We have been told that One of the factors that there's multiplicity of them, but one of the factors that comes into play, and I'm not going to overemphasize any of them because I think anybody can argue a point by doing that. I'm not trying to do that. But one of the factors is that we being the staff in our schools, would be under and you've seen this already, under 1A, phase 1B of the vaccination schedule. It's not mandatory, but at least that would be offered, and that would be alongside of emergency personnel, law enforcement, and the like.
That's the second round, correct?
Yeah, it's the second round, but it's in the first round, but we're like the B section of that, if that makes sense. You got A, and the A is going to be long-term health facilities, and of course our healthcare providers. And our nurses, we were told today, our school nurses are included in those healthcare providers as well. So we were very pleased that that's going to be the case. Some of our school nurses are actually going to, whether they have to or not, they've already volunteered or are going to be asked to consider help with contact tracing when that does reoccur. And they can do that some in our schools, yes. So if you're looking at just a management in our schools, we could probably start doing some of that, but the big problem is unaware and unchecked. And there's just no way. There's no way to follow that. So I'm just being blunt. I'm being frank and transparent with you that that's where we are from the Virginia Department of Health recommendation and from our view and our interpretation of what was said about that.
I heard on the news tonight, just coming down here, that they're going to release 70,000 to the state of Virginia in the first round. And those people in that first classification, which is healthcare workers and nursing homes, they're going to release 70,000 initially, and then I understand 70,000 per week, but there's 500,000 people in that first classification. So if you do the math, there's 7 weeks, not including Christmas holiday and New Year. So you're talking at least 2 months if you do 70,000 a week to get just that first classification.
True. And true, that could change, Mr. Music. Or we heard the same thing.
It could, yeah.
And she addressed that today about the 70,000. So
I'm going to do a little editorial just in response to Mr. Henderson, but I think as Dr. Shelton said when she sat here before, it all depends on people's behavior and what they do, and it's evident, it's obvious that people's behavior has got worse. So. And we said as a board, you said, we all said that staying in school, part of being able to stay in school is not only behavior within the schools, but also behavior outside the schools. So, we heard folks here tonight say, if you don't have sports, we're going somewhere else and play sports. So, to me, that's saying if we don't get it, we're going to contribute more to the cause. So it's a little bit frustrating to me that we're trying to do things, and I get it. I mean, I understand the frustration, and I sympathize with every one of them. I really do. I can't even imagine missing all that, but. That's not, I hope folks realize in the long run, that's really not the answer, because the only way we're ever going to get back to normalcy is that we behave and we do the things we need to do. And until the community starts doing that, the Department of Health's not going to have the manpower and the ability to come back and help us do the things we need to do to get children back in school and to be able to play sports and all those extracurricular activities that we'd like to allow them to do. So.
Yes, sir. There's a couple of things in terms of back to the games in the Virginia High School League is that it is at this time there have been some school systems in the area that have and what was particularly mentioned tonight was Mountain 7 that is accurate, that those school systems at this moment until their board meetings in the next few days are going to consider they have not made a suspension of athletic events and some other activities from what I understand. And I've spoken to all except one of the superintendents. I just couldn't reach that individual today. And let me give you it by way of example. At this point, it has been suspended till further notice in Wythe County, suspended next door in northeast of us in Smith County, and then us here in Washington County have suspended those based on the recommendation from our health department, our district. And for the Hoagie district, just so you'll be aware of the Hoagie district, that means that there's no participants. So regardless of whether we allowed or we started talking about relief from that suspension at this moment, there wouldn't be any participation anyway. Games are slated. Some of the folks are concerned because some of the games are slated toward the end of the month in December. And so that's why you're hearing some things that you're hearing about that in terms of participation. So I do want you to be aware that in light of what I heard today, I mean, I certainly feel like that, I've already made the recommendation, we've already made the decision about suspending activities until further notice. So I say that we need to remain there, at least until we've heard from some other folks in terms of participation, if nothing else. But more important than that and higher than that is that, once again, this afternoon, our health department doc is adamant, strongly recommending it, that you continue a suspension of those types of activities, of any gathering of any kind that goes, in her words, unchecked. And she said that is no fault of the schools. Again, she has said on 3 occasions in the last, since Thursday, how well the schools have done, and that if everyone would do like we've done, and I know it sounds like I'm bragging, I'm just telling you, we've done the work. We need to continue to do the work in that regard, and but at this time, it would not be prudent to lift the suspension or to consider going back into in-person schooling for the time being.
But Dr. Ellis, the key to it is the letter said suspended. It didn't say canceled.
Correct. Absolutely.
And or postponed. Same thing with Smith County.
Absolutely.
And the thing about it is our number one ally, like I told you the other day when you called me, our number one ally was that contact tracing.
Yes, sir.
We don't have that. That's why I asked that question about Dr.
Yes,
Shelton,
sir.
what she said. So.
No, and I appreciate you asking that question. It was good timing in that regard too. But yes, you're right. It's suspended until further notice.
And I've been an athletic director before in a big district. In District 7, they could get together if they wanted to, the ADs and the principals, and work a schedule out. Because I don't know who else are going to play. They can't go out of state and play.
Further information might be helpful. I didn't realize this, and Dr. Yost and some other people here have had to explain this to me today because I've been out of it for too long. But and BHSL is run by the districts and the principals in the district, and BHSL, as we know, a lot of times they don't have a ton of power either in that regard because they're run by the districts, but the principals. But we have. My understanding, and Dr. Millie and Dr. Wallace may have to help me with this too, but there's a certain number of practices that have to be 8 right now, and I think that's been reduced. I don't know what it was like when you all were officiating or coaching and all that, but there's 8. I understand that you have to get in, and then there's some conversation about what would that look like. Does it have to be actual held physical practices and completion? Is there possibility for, drills and board work and all kinds of things? I just heard all of that. I don't have any direction on that and don't have any real good sense to share with you. Somebody else in the room may, but I don't. But your point is well taken and needs to be well understood, is that it is suspended at this time. There have been conversations, we've been in conversations with administrative staff today. Dr. Noe and Dr. Wallace and I met with the high school and middle school principals in particular, and to talk about this and try to make any kind of considerations for a season in the winter. We just don't know. We don't know if we're going to be able to come back on on January 5. Right now, I would say that would be very, very hard pressed to do that, based on what we're hearing and the projections that we have. I just don't have that information ready to make that a good, sound, reasonable, safe decision for our school community from my vantage and my role. I don't have that ability at this moment to do. I hate to tell you that we don't have a targeted date. It has been suggested that because of the way the gatherings are going to take place, and as we know that the Thanksgiving gatherings, and again, that goes back to human behavior and understood, we all have experienced that. It's been a long time. And so for me to make comments would be just out of line, inappropriate for me to make comments about what people might try to do at Christmas, except for or over the holidays, is that I would just implore people, and I do all the time. These folks know I do, to implore them to do everything they can during this time, because particularly Dr. Shelton said today, the next 45 days in particular, there's nothing magical about those 45 days, but through the rest of this month and through the month of January, it's going to be particularly difficult. Really, really difficult for us, and we really need to do everything that we can. So back to the gatherings, without making judgment on individuals who decide to do that, we know it's human nature and human behavior to do such, and so when that's done, there has to be opportunity for some clearance. And so in most cases, a lot of folks are saying, we're not even going to target, we're going to come back to our next board meeting and discuss, and that's what I might recommend this board does, that on January 4th that we come back and discuss that. But in most cases, they're saying to at least give some clearance of a week or so after a break to even consider in-person instruction. I know Tazewell County just announced this afternoon that they're going all virtual, and I think there's some others that haven't been all virtual that they're now going to go all virtual, and I suspect in the next 24 to 48 hours you'll see additional. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not speaking for anybody else's business, but that seems to be what's transpiring.
Where we've said postpone and suspend 37 schools in Roanoke and above, and said they're canceling winter sports. So I think at least we're giving a little light at the end of the tunnel there. If we can get this contact tracing back and the numbers go down, or switch that around, the numbers go down and the contact tracing comes back.
Yes, sir, and I think that number increased today. So it may be above 37 that have actually said they're canceling. And I'm not recommending to this board or our school community that we cancel winter season at this juncture, but we do remain in suspension until we feel like that there's a manageability piece that I can come back in good conscience and even remotely consider that.
Yeah, you
can very difficult.
You can certainly understand, or I can, because I've had kids or people that's involved and care as much for the sports or programs that they were in.
Yes, sir.
As anybody did. So you can have a feel for all these, regardless of what, cheerleaders, basketball,
academic,
whatever it is.
Scholastic Bowl, we were supposed to start Scholastic Bowl here real soon.
And if the state guidelines come to where we possibly could do that or get involved in it, I think it'd be good to do that. And I know we canceled out and went out of coming on the hybrid into everything virtual because of they let us know that they then couldn't be able to track anymore or trace any cases anymore, which was a big thing, there's no doubt. So you don't ever know what things might happen here in next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry I'm taking so long. I do think this next point's important to you reminded me of, Mr. Brooks.
Okay.
You weren't finished, were you?
Pardon?
Were you finished? Did I interrupt you? Were you finished?
Oh, yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, because I'm sorry if I
go ahead,
never ever want to do that to any of you. But you reminded me of another point that I wanted to circle back to, and it's about within school transmission and school outbreaks. And I'd mentioned that we had not had them. You'll notice that I'd said as of Thursday, and that's accurate. Friday, we still haven't had one, and we still don't have one confirmed in our school system. There is one that is inconclusive at this point, and we may know something tomorrow, or it may just remain inconclusive. But we do have one situation where there's I don't know if hunch is the right word, but there's some features and characteristics and timelines that might suggest that we do have the school transmission, but it has not been confirmed. It remains inconclusive as before the meeting tonight. However, having said that, what I meant earlier by now there are in Mount Rogers District, whereas there hadn't been any in Mount Rogers District, there's been that I was aware of. We were told today that there are. So, and I don't know which county, and that it's not for me to delve, but there has been, and we knew that was a matter of time too. So, anyway, I pardon the length of that, but I do recommend that we consider coming back on January 4 in terms of revisiting the notion at that point we may have additional information. Dr. Shelton said things could go. If we get a case decline and we still are in a place where it looks like we're on solid footing, that she might be able to recommend and support some in-person at some point. She is not incredibly confident about that. She feels really good about the possibility that our adults in our school communities could be vaccinated earlier. It may be a dream, but it could happen as early as late January or by February. There is, just so you understand, if you don't already, it's a second round situation, so you'll have vaccinations. Those who choose to inoculate, they'll get a vaccination, and then 4 weeks later, in Pfizer's, I got that wrong today earlier, gentlemen, when I was telling you. I think it's 3 weeks later, they have an additional boost, if you will, for a lack of a better word. I'm sorry, but a booster. And there is evidence that this vaccination, again, I'll be careful not to speak too far along on this, but from what I understand today, evidence that this vaccination could go to work in terms of immunity within 2 weeks. And it'll vary and it'll depend, and that's what I shared with the administrative staff today. I understand, I hate that answer, it depends, but it depends on a lot of times with the individual. There is indication in this, I got wrong today as well. On the second one, they really think within 7 days of the Pfizer vaccination. I'm not sure about Moderna. The Pfizer vaccination within 7 days after the second booster vaccination, that immunity should conceivably in concept be in place. And so we're very encouraged by that and encouraged by what might transpire when those vaccinations occur in our school community. So
I seen the schedule this afternoon. I guess this is for Virginia's schedule for the inaugural.
Yes.
And it detailed each one all the way down as far as it's going to go with.
All the way.
A long ways down.
Yeah. It is, and it could be as late as late spring and summer. My wife joked, she said, and other people say, I guess I'm way down the list.
Yeah, so you can look on there and tell.
If you choose to be vaccinated.
You can tell when you're scheduled. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a while because like Mr. Music said, I mean, even just with the numbers of vaccinations that are coming in from what we understand, again, this is just coming from Dr. Shelton and Brian Ford's-Hooper today, and then that email that I sent you all. It's quite an undertaking. I mean, we're not talking about a state or a country, we're talking about a world that's going to be vaccinated. In our country, it's a huge undertaking. You're talking about potentially 330 million individuals. Obviously, not everyone will take the vaccination, and it'll be a long time. Our children have not been involved in the trials, as you know, so that's a long time coming. So we're in a mode of no one likes to hear this, but we're in a mode of not being normal for a while longer, and I think we all understand that now, and we'll just keep our load management, and we'll keep doing day by day, doing the best we can to make the best decisions we can with the information we have.
And hope everything gets better.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Trying to rationalize all this through the process. Everybody said that it was going to get worse as wintertime got here. There were millions of dollars poured into mitigation efforts, millions of dollars set aside for health departments. And our local health department tells us we cannot protect you. But our health department and everybody says being in school is the best thing for your children. But yet our major number one health department does not or is not able to provide the support we need to remain in school. If you're all sitting there wondering why we're in a mess, I'm going to give you 3 points. That's one. The governor has an executive order statewide. He changes that executive order to specifically allow for athletics, okay, through the Virginia High School League. What does he do? It's left up to the local community. So we got a health department who says, quote, we cannot protect you. We've got a governor that makes a choice for the entire state, and yet all the responsibility is back on the locality. We've got a Virginia High School League who sits there with 24 executive board members, 9 superintendents from 9 different regions all across the state. In Radford, the health department, local health department officials saying, keep your kids in school, play. Allow them to do that mentally and socially. From our health department director, we're saying revise, close, recommend, strongly, whatever. Whose decision is it laid back on? The locality. Once again, we've got one Virginia health department. We've got 41 local health districts, and nobody's speaking the same message.
Yes, sir.
The governor's not speaking the same message. The health department's not speaking the same message. The Virginia High School League, what did they say? Here's the schedule. Here's the mitigation efforts. It's up to the locality. And there's 24 members on that executive committee from Dinwiddie to Virginia Beach to wherever. And we're all sitting here wondering why we're in a mess. The millions of dollars that was put into mitigation efforts, health departments, they said it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But yet, when we need them, when we needed them the most, to keep kids in school, to provide some sort of activities of co-curricular, extracurricular, they're not there. So I'm just trying to bring it to a boil that no wonder we don't know what to do, how to do it. Now, I would like to see us, as we move forward, to give hope to young people, young teachers, young coaches, anybody within the system, to at least have something being proactive, find out why is it one health department director says one thing, why does another say another? Why does the VDH not have a common message for everybody across the state, if that's what we're trying to do in Virginia? So be proactive in what we're doing and continually get updates from the health department. Change our first play date, if we have to. Change it to January 14th. Give these kids hope that if and when we are allowed medically to come back, that we can change our play date. There's several school divisions now that I know have done that. Instead of 12/26 or 12/24, whatever the start date is, they're saying, hey, nobody's playing in our school division until January 10th. Which if you were to come back sometime after that, if the health department, I just don't want us to set it aside and as a board, us not act like that we want to help you in every single way we can. Yeah. It's just we're restricted in a lot of ways because nobody knows what they're doing, including from the top down. So to echo some of the points that were made, we feel for you, but in this situation, we're trying to make the best decisions that we can make. But I wanted to point out just some key things statewide that I felt like, now this is not a statement from this school board, but in me trying to frame it in my mind, why is all this happening to us? We knew Thanksgiving was going to be an outbreak. They said when cold weather got here, but either we didn't hire enough staff or the money wasn't used or they couldn't find enough staff maybe. I don't know the reasons and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just giving you my perception of all those different levels of what has happened that has put us in this situation that we're in now. Thank you.
That question was asked today about the inconsistency, so I want to pull, Dr. Brandon made a lot of good points, but
that one is that was asked today, and there wasn't a real good answer except for what I shared with you, that I know that another local district is going to make a similar some sort of statement. But there, Dr. Brandon, again, made a lot of good points, and he was accurate in all of them. And one of them is even today, one of the school divisions has said that they want to be proactive in that regard, and that's why suspension and postponing, not canceling, is important to think about maybe sometime in January start time. The difficulty is that the number of games that you can get in, and then everybody worries about inclement weather, thinking ahead like that how many games can we actually get in, but to work to try to achieve some sort of winter season is on everybody's mind. They want to do that, and they want to be able to support our kids, to echo what Dr. Brandon just said in that regard.
Yeah, and if they have to play 3 games a week, I mean, we've done that in normal years.
Yeah.
4 games a week. I mean, the kids would rather be playing than practicing.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. So,
Biggest frustration as a
if at
coach.
some point we can get them back in and they can get in their, 14 games?
Yeah.
Is that what they can play?
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't take but about 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks if you really want to get in 14 games.
And
If you have people to play. So if they'll be flexible, if we can get to that point where we allow that and not say, oh my gosh, we got to play 3 games, it's sort of a give and take from the schools and from what we can decide that the school system can.
We talked about that today, that we already have, correct me on I think Tuesday, Friday, Saturdays I may have it wrong, but for basketball, and then if there's going to be wrestling at any point, and the other sports as well, but those two were just specifically mentioned that you're already kind of in your mind planning on scheduling at least 3 games a week.
But
My comments were no criticism of this county or this board. I'm just trying to rationalize it in my head. How the heck did we get in this position?
Understood.
And I think a lot of those things put us in this position, and now we got to figure out a way out.
And a good point, Dr. Brandon made, if we could look at the season later on, look at the FBS. You got the Pac-12. Some of them only played 2 games, 3 games. And we're talking major colleges. A high school could do that. I mean, a high school could start later. High schools could start. And that's why I say if we could just get our ADs and our coaches and our principals together from Mountain 7 and see if they'd work with us. I mean, we'd work with them, I'd hope.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I can remember, I can't remember exactly what year it was. Anyway, they missed, went 3 days in January. Dickie Greer was a basketball coach down at John Battle. And I think you said something about required so many practices before you could play or what sophomore year. They practiced. They wasn't playing, but they played some games, but nevertheless, they practiced time morning. They had a practice for the morning, and they had to practice it, and again at night in the evening. So they got 2 practices in that during a day. If that might not have been a requirement then, but they were out practiced.
Yeah. There's some guidelines for that. We understand that may preclude them from doing that.
I think that the rest of the reality here, though, is as you try to get those games in, that would assume that both of the teams would be able to play because they hadn't been sidelined because of positive tests or quarantine.
Sure.
And so I think that's another piece of it that we all have to remember as a community.
I want to keep hope alive. I really do, honestly, and all of you do. I mean, and all the comments you're saying, I hear you. I just know it's not about community cases totally, but just from a management standpoint, I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying from a management standpoint that at one point the cases in our community in the Mount district doubled overnight, and so that was as a part of what's going on here. So again, I'm like Dr. Brandon. I'm not blaming or defending. I'm doing neither one. I just wanted to make that point clear that has made it very, very difficult, and there's a real concern about if the trajectory continues in the fashion that is projected, that it's just going to make it really hard for us to have that extra layer of protection. So I just wanted to make sure that point was
I'll make a quick point too. There's 4 high schools in the county. two in one district and two in another. So, you know, when you think about equity, either all four high schools are gonna have the opportunity to play, or none of them are gonna have the opportunity to play. I mean, how do you do that with equity if one district's not playing and the other one's not? I mean, the important thing right now is, to me, is figuring out how to get kids back in school in person. That's where we need to really,
It's safe to do so.
that needs to be the priority and the focus right now, is how we get kids back in the classroom.
Yes, sir.
We're in-person instruction.
And if we'd have been able to do that, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Well, possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less like, I'll say less
Less
likely.
likely. That's a good
We've
way to
been
put
having
it.
this discussion.
Yeah,
The way we're in.
That's fair enough.
So,
I do know that, again, I wanted to come back, and I said I would, in terms of other, it's not hinged upon other decisions from school divisions, but to have those conversations, whether it be with the district and other principals and then other superintendents, they have to go through their board action. And some of that's going to take place in the Mountain 7 District tomorrow in one of the areas, and then another one on Thursday. So this week, there could be some different decisions made. And again, that doesn't necessarily affect us. Usually borrowing Dr. Brandon's word about being proactive, is that we would then be able to kind of have the landscape of when we are able to do that. And our chief goal is to think about when it is that we could possibly do some in-person instruction again, is to also look at those extracurricular activities. We've talked about basketball only because that's what's been brought up tonight. But there are a lot of, like I just mentioned, there's Scholastic Bowl and there's other activities. There's cheerleading participation. There's all kinds of things that we were having to take into consideration outside of just athletics for extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So all individuals are being affected, not just our student athletes. So my recommendation is to remain in place in terms of suspension of those activities. We'll work together with the areas, work with the health department for consideration for January. But right now, I think that we need to remain with our resolve to do our part, and our part right now is to remain suspended of those and remain on virtual and remote instruction, and that I recommend that the board come back on January 4 and revisit the piece about the virtual instruction.
So but I just want to make it clear too, it's still until further notice. So,
Yes, sir.
So as of right now, it doesn't mean January 4th, we're going to decide one way or another. It's just that we'll revisit it then, but it's still until further. I mean, I just don't want someone to feel like we're going to come in here or it would be conditional on the board vote. I mean, right now it's still further notice, and I think that's part of when we've got help to put the mitigation strategy back in place.
I think that's
I'm
key.
not trying to muddy the water. I'm trying to clear it up a little bit so everyone understands, and certainly whether we're in school or out, it'll always be a topic of discussion in board meetings in the near future.
And I'm not trying to be ambiguous at all. It's just we don't know what will happen. And so I don't want to say for sure that things may change in the next few weeks, whether we're in school or out of school or on break. Things may change to such that we feel really positive about the possibility of coming back in person earlier in January. I think it's probably, just to be real frank about it, I think it's probably a little bit impractical to believe that we could start on January 5, but just because of what we've said and what we know about this, what little bit we're learning about this virus, and without those protections in place, I think it's going to be really hard for us to consider our slated time for return to in-person learning. I think that we're looking at a minimum of having a week from even thinking about that. So that's why I suggest that we stay in until further notice. with the notion that we come back on January 4th to reconsider and look at what data that we might have that may have changed and those kind of things. I mean, we may see a decline, and we're hopeful for that, but we don't anticipate it.
You never know. I'll always look positive. But nevertheless, something might happen next week or next 2 weeks or whatever, that things change and something might not. But if they do, it's for the better. We're going to be off for a month. 2 weeks from now or before Christmas, we're going to be out. We're going to be virtual for 2 weeks and out for 2 weeks. So if we need something comes up, if we need to talk, hey, we can have a board meeting. And there's nothing saying we can't come together at any time. Looking positive, then, or negative, whichever one it might be, but we can still come together.
Yes, sir.
Do we have policy in place that we could actually have a Zoom meeting and broadcast live that we can't meet the public? I mean, do we have that?
I don't know whether we have policy in place, but I think the law does allow that now during the pandemic. But it's very specific what you can, you can speak to more, Dr. Rattler. Well, we've had this discussion before. If you do those types of meetings, it's a little more specific about what those meetings can be used for and what they can't be used for. Is that right?
Correct. And there are people that, and I'm sure that you're aware, there are school systems and school boards that have done Zoom meetings and they have counted. I would want to get specifics on that from our attorney, and I'll do that tomorrow.
I mean, you certainly couldn't do any closed session.
Right.
So it would have to be.
I was sort of following up on his point, just to be fair to both sides.
Yeah.
If Dr. Shelton's not there next week and we got a new health director, or she gets convinced by 4 other health directors that are saying, that's not the right move, and we have a reversal, just to be fair to both sides, that we could meet by Zoom if necessary to discuss a specific topic. I don't believe it any more than anybody else does, but just to be fair to everybody, I don't want them to think that we ignored everything that was said and that we don't even have a possibility if it were to happen.
I will make sure with legal counsel tomorrow morning that I pursue that and make sure we have that outlined carefully. And if there has to be any adjustments in procedure, then I'll make sure that you're aware of those. But I do think we have the latitude, to answer your question, we do have the latitude certainly to meet, but we also have the latitude to meet Zoom, but I'll get all the details tomorrow morning.
I believe that we've authorized the superintendent to take the actions he finds necessary too, without our meetings.
Sure.
So I don't have a problem with that, Dr. Rattler.
I think we've given it to him from the start.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, because if things do go in a different direction and we didn't have to call that and we could make some of those proactive decisions, then I do appreciate that opportunity, not because I want that, but I just think for our school community that would be the most expeditious way and the fairest way to handle that. So yes, I appreciate it. I know we do. We appreciate that. Over everything. You gentlemen, I just want to make sure, ladies, you were in that meeting this morning too. PALS data, Dr. Brandon, I think you and some others had asked about PALS data. Dr. Noe has information, and I have it available too, but I'll turn it over to him to provide information about PALS and Virginia Kindergarten Readiness Program data.
Do you have a copy? Did we provide them a copy of general overview? All right. BKRP, which is Virginia Kindergarten Readiness Program evaluation. Students overall did real well on that. We were pleased. A couple of areas maybe not as high as what we would like, but it's a consistent pattern over time that we know we need to work on. And it measures areas such as geometry, patterns, numeracy, computation, self-regulation skills, and social skills. Lower in geometry and maybe patterns than what the other ones are. That we are working on that. We've identified that already. Pre-K PALS data, that is for the Pre-K 4 program, and we are about average with what we would expect from our students in the Pre-K program, where they have scored, and it builds. So if they get to a certain point and they don't do as well, if they don't go further, so it's somewhat will skew on the upper end some of the ratings. But It measures areas such as uppercase alphabet, lowercase alphabet, letter sounds, beginning sound awareness, print word awareness, rhyme awareness, and nursery rhyme awareness. And our students as a whole did average with what we would expect from that. Our K3 PALS data, which is, again, reading assessment where students fall and those identified needing some intervention and assistance. We, kindergarten through third grade, is where that is measured, and we're a little higher overall, and more students were identified as needing some, as we would expect from the situation that we're in this year. Not tremendously overall. I think probably a 5% on average by grade level by school. Some are more, some are less, but about 5% greater identification rate than what we would have typically experienced, which would have been expected. I was pleased that it was no more than that. There are, again, some grade levels, some schools, it's more and some is less. Some is a reduced identification rate, but an average of about 5%.
I apologize, Dr. Noe. When was this testing done, or
Yeah,
this year?
It is, yes. That was done for, as I said, the pre-K through third grade students in the fall of this year. We will reevaluate with PALS testing those students at intervals throughout this year. It depends on what our school setting is, when we'll be able to do that, though.
What about our reading indicators, Dr. Noe? Anything on reading?
Reading recovery indicators? I don't have that information with me. I'll try to get that. I do know that, I don't know enough to say anything that would be verifiable on that.
Thank you.
In your professional opinion, do you feel like that the 5% discrepancy can be made up by our professional staff in the future?
We will make it up. It is amazing that it's only a 5% discrepancy given last spring and the situation this fall. The work that they have done is absolutely tremendous.
Been very, very pleased with that. The delta's not larger than we thought it could be. That is it. Thank you for your patience. There's a lot. You all been very patient.
Do you have anything else, Dr.
No.
Okay, thank you. Item 8.01 is roof bid approval for Holston High School.
I'll probably call on Dr. Wallace a little bit, but it's pretty clear. You can see that Dr. Wallace has been given information about a partial roofing, and Ms. Caldwell and I have been made aware of that bid. There was a low bid by Cornet Roofing. It was low, and it's also great quality, as you are aware, and that's the reason I've called for a resolution tonight. Ms. Caldwell, Dr. Wallace, please jump in if you need to. But this, I've closed a copy of what Mr. Buchanan offered to Dr. Wallace with the bid tabulations being what they are. You'll see the large differences in the bidding. And Cornet is, as you are aware, they have won and earned with great respect all of our roofing business as a result of the way that they bid and certainly the quality of work that they have. So I'll go ahead and just kind of beat you to it and certainly answer questions, but I recommend that we accept, based on what Mr. Buchanan and Dr. Wallace have indicated, that we accept this bid as a partial roofing bid. It is a little more than we thought, and we will use the money that certainly that the county has provided to us by way of $200,000 that was placed into 316, and then the other funding that remains there available to get this project completed. And this will complete our whole entire cycle of roofing projects for the county, which is kudos to you and to the opportunities and the decisions that you've made to be able to make that happen. So that's my recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the bid by Cornet Roofing for the roofing at Holston High School.
Second. Okay, a motion by Ms. Lowe and a second by Mr. Henderson that we approve Cornet Roofing for the roofing project at Holston High School. Any discussion?
What's the time frame schedule of starting work and ending work?
Truly, I'd have to ask what the plan is. We don't have that.
I'm gonna be honest with you right now, material availability and all of that, I'm not, because I've been helping a guy some, and material availability is a huge, and then of course, we're getting in time with weather too.
Part of the increase on this one is that it'll have to remain a ballasted roof. So they don't have to move gravel as they put. So there's a lot of horsepower that's going to have to go into the process.
Does their contract include COVID waivers and so forth for the workers? Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Ms. Hamilton, I'm glad you're still with us.
It is kind of odd being on this side of everything.
Item 9.01, discussion and consideration of the Washington County Public School Finance Committee's recommendation. Dr. Rapp.
Sir, I'll take the lead. I'll begin and then I'll get out of your way, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. But there are two areas that I want to talk to you about tonight. That's why you see recommendations. But really, one certainly recommendation is a turn to come back to the notion of salary scales. And then the second one was that whole idea that we had discussion in our finance committee about exploring opportunities to see how I wrote this so that you let me know if this fits what we said in the recommendation in the finance committee. Exploring opportunities to be equitable in terms of helping with revenue loss in our student activity accounts. The obvious one is athletics, because that's where your gate receipts are, particularly during seasons. We're going to lose a lot of money. There's band, there's, what else do we talk about, Mr. Fleener, Mr. Music? I mean, there's band, fruit sales, fundraisers for choral programs, whatever they might be. And a lot of our support for them is going to be lost. It's not, and you might say, well, you're going to have less expenditures, but the problem is going forward, first of all, we don't know what the budget's going to look like for next year. But as we move toward normalcy and activity, and hopefully, won't that be just a wonderful party that we can have is when we get to 5 days a week and we go that direction. But if we, having that in mind, I would like the opportunity to move forward on exploring, looking at our budget, to look for ways to give maybe even a principal's discretionary line into the student activities to fund and support and help our programs that have had, will have had it by that point, significant revenue loss. So even if we were to engage in activities, for example, I'll use athletics as an example because again, that's the one that we think about with concession and gate. Even if we were to engage into that in shortened season format, obviously you're going to lose a lot of revenue there. And that's, again, this is just one example. But you're also, by nature of the fact that our gathering limitations has already been pointed out tonight in terms of the governor's executive order, then that's going to limit the number of people that are going to be able to evolve anyway. So even when you do come back to that, if that executive order remains in place and we remain mitigated in the fashion that we are in gatherings, there's just not going to be any money. And that's just one example. I mean, the fruit sale was a huge one for the band. I don't know, Mr. Fourier, you're here tonight. I mean, there are certain fundraisers that he did when he was in elementary school that he may have done differently in high school now at Holston High School and at Damascus Middle, and all those are going to be really hard if not impossible to engage in again. So I'm saying is it would just be more for an offset. And I will give you a quick heads up on this, and Ms. Caldwell may have to help me with this as well. But like, for example, in the budget, and some of you all have mentioned this to me individually, that utility and fuel, we already know that thousands of dollars of difference. And so there is going to be money for this board to be able to take action to support. And I know that some of you have expressed interest in doing that. So my recommendation is that you allow us the opportunity to explore, to come up with a number. We've done this before, and we've given it to the accounts for instructional purposes, and this would be part of that as well. And it'll just kind of, because there's vending, there's all kinds of things that come into play that you can't do in the schools and the school activity accounts to carry them over for the next fiscal year if you don't have the ability to gain that revenue. So I appreciate board members mentioning that to me and giving me that insight, and then the finance committee talking about that. And then the second one, and then I'll get out of the way now, is the increase. We talked about at one point a 2%, maybe even a 3% increase in salary. We just, obviously, we don't feel comfortable. You've made that decision from a one-time expenditure standpoint to make what has already been noted by one speaker tonight, of the generosity of that. And I want to thank you on behalf of the entire school system and the school community for that notion of giving that. It's just been, it's unbelievable. In my tenure of, over 30 years, I look at, I don't know that I've had that experience before. And so I just want to thank you as board leaders for doing that. In light of that, we did talk about making some salary adjustments that would affect folks across the board. And the recommendation, do you mind if I go ahead and give the recommendation, is after looking at the dollar amounts and what we're able to do is to reduce that to a 1% increase across the board. And of course, that being enacted and activated in January would essentially be for this year's, for our encumbrances later and recurring costs, it would be a 1% increase. And for the balance of this year, it would result in a 0.5%. But that cost, total annual cost increase with FICA and BRS would be $501,954. Estimated cost from January to June that we're talking about now is $250,980. So I'll step out of the way, Mr. Music and Mr. Fleener, at this time, but that is my recommendation at this point.
I don't really have anything else to add to what Dr. Rattler said. I think that was the consensus of our committee work. And I think taking what you said and what we said in committee, we're looking at approving the compensation adjustment tonight and not coming up with a specific amount tonight for the activity fund. That's
yes,
correct.
Sir. Yes, sir. Some things kind of get in the way between our meeting and now, right?
And just to give consideration for them to be able to, to do the activity account.
Yes, sir, and we can certainly come back on January 4th, but I would like your blessing to do that.
But the compensation adjustment of the 1% was the consensus of the committee.
Now, can I ask one question? Is that from the top of the scale to the bottom?
It's from the top of the scale, with the exception of someone who's written in contract. That doesn't occur, yes, so from that point, bottom to top, I should say, all across the board, that would be a 1% increase.
And going back, to the activities funds, and something that I talked about, and I'll just say to the rest of you, I think it's really good that we do that, but I think it's very important that we give direction to the principals and ADs and all the other folks involved is to spend it wisely. If you don't need it, don't just because you have it feel the need to spend it, because it's basically a subsidy program is what it is. I mean, we're subsidizing these programs, so we want to help you, but we want you to help yourself too. So, don't make some bad business decisions and then come back down the road and say, oh, we don't have money. So just, give that direction out and say, we're helping you, but you help yourself too.
And Mr. Music, hopefully it wasn't preemptive, but it was rather proactive in that I'd already had that discussion. We had that discussion. We had that discussion with the administrator.
So I'm glad you have.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you have had that discussion.
Yes, sir. After you and Mr. Fleener talked with us about that, I met with the administrative staff, and part of the discussion was to say what you just shared.
We felt like the 1% with the stipend was very reasonable. We don't know, certainly don't know what next year's going to hold, so we'll be conservative and not run that recurring cost up too much till we see what the future's going to hold for us. Of course, we're as you look at the agenda, next meeting it's a meeting, it's an organizational, and it's also a budget meeting. So we're You know, we're still talking about this year, and then next meeting, we'll continue to talk about this year, and we'll start talking about next year too, so. Current cycle, Mr. Flynn.
If I could just add one other thought that I thought of in talking about the activities fund. We also discussed equity and the fact that Abingdon High School and Holston High School, just to use those two for example, the amount of money that we would put back into those funds would not be the same. Ms. Caudill had a very good suggestion, I thought, and again, we're just leaving this up to them to discuss, but she had a good thought. I thought X amount of dollars per student, and that way you get into an equity, where we're not saying per school, we're saying per student, and that way it levels out for the bigger schools and the smaller schools. It is equitable in that respect. But again, that's something that's still up for discussion. That's nothing we're deciding tonight.
Well, I know the biggest expense would probably be where you send off your get reconditioned and buying other equipment. I don't want to put my other thing, but you buying the spring and bill for the fall. I always did that, and so that's a big thing to think about as well.
I applaud the finance committee for taking care of our employees. I mean, it's still tough on them. I mean, you can see it, and you know what's going on, and they're. I really feel like all of them are trying to put forth their best efforts. So I applaud the finance committee for working both last recommendation and this recommendation. Thank you.
I think we continue to look. We continue to look if there's money available and there's things we can do for our employees. I think that's something.
Yep.
It's been a rough year and a rough time for a lot of families, and additional child care is every other one. But, I think we'll continue, or whoever, I'm going to speak for whoever the finance committee is the next year. I hope that we continue to look at opportunities to provide for our employees.
Yeah, so by matter of discussion now becomes a point of consideration and approval.
I think we do need a resolution to approve the 1% increase effective January.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve 1% increase to all employees from top to bottom, every category, starting, would you say, January 1st?
Effective first pay, would be first payroll in.
First payroll in January then.
Or will the first, well, that depends on when that check's issued. It could have been for December. It's a timing thing, isn't it, Ms. Caudill?
We're gonna do it just based on the first pay date in January. And it'll still cover the hours worked still in December, but just only clean cutoff, which is say what date we wanna start it.
Payday in
First
January.
pay, yeah.
Okay, I'll make that.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Ms. Henderson, a second by Ms. Lowe, that we approve a 1% increase for all employees in all classifications effective first pay period in January.
It's January 8th.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. So we'll come back, Dr. Ratliff has talked about the activities funds, and there's really no action to take on that tonight. It's just for discussion. I think you'll be coming back with a recommendation in the future. Is that correct, Dr. Ratliff?
We can do that, yes, sir.
Item 10, approval of the agenda for the January 4th, 2021 organizational meeting and public hearing on budget meeting.
It's not posted on board, I just realized that. But, Mr. Chair, if with the consensus of the board, you all can't see it, can you, on board doc? That we have an organizational meeting on January 4th, and that it be a public hearing on the budget, and that we take care of the other business we need to take care of.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Lowe and a second by Mr. Henderson to approve This a tentative agenda for January 4th organizational meeting and public hearing on the budget and further business to be discussed by board.
So before you do that, it is in there. I'm not saying it wasn't posted, Ms. Lowe, and I apologize that that's the case, but it did include the contents of what Ms. Lowe described in her motion. So
I don't have, we don't have.
Okay.
It's in the packet, but it's not included.
It has the organizational piece that she referenced, and which includes the leadership of the board in the coming year, and the school board clerk, and the school board deputy clerk, and then the authorization.
That's all.
For the superintendent to approve it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Item 11.01 is update the board. Mr. Brooks, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would just like to say a thank you to all of our employees and parents and students that have come about this last few weeks. Dr. Noy's information they gave us about the test that some of them has took and done, and how good they done. And I tell you, they, to my opinion, and my feelings for them, I've been around, they work the hardest, I believe, the teachers and everyone in the school, custodians, cooks, everything, office staff. I think they worked the hardest, and the students were them little guys and girls walking down through there with a mask on, 4 and 5 foot apart, a little bit closer every once in a while. And I tell you, the attitude of everybody was one for success, and there's no doubt about it, and it was. And I just want to say a thank you to everybody, staff here and everybody for that, what went on, because it was something that was special, there's no doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
It's good, it's good give them some appreciation for that. This past Thursday night, it didn't happen on Friday, but a parent called me and told me, he said, I got a little boy in was talking about school. He said, yeah, I got a little boy in first grader. I said, well, you're doing really good. I said, I went to pick him up today, and he come out with a smile and said, he hadn't been liking school too good. He said, he come out with me, he said, Daddy, he said, I really had a good day in school today. So, you know, the attitude of everybody has been there to learn, and that's what they've done. And I'm not sure about the rest of the high schools, the fruit sale that they normally have. I guess maybe all of them are having, I don't know. But if they're not, I'm not sure there'll be any left over, but John Battle's got a fruit sale. So if anybody needs some fruit, holler if they've got it, and I'll find out. So that's all I have. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Mr. Fleming.
I know we all extend our utmost sympathies to Ms. Kaiser and continue to hold her in our prayers and our thoughts. I do appreciate the comments that were made tonight. I hope everybody understands that we're in a situation now where all of Southwest Virginia is hurting. I got 2 emails today from friends who have had family members pass away from COVID within the last week. So, you know, it's here, and it's important that we are taking it seriously. And that's all I have.
Ms. Hamilton.
Hi. First of all, thank you for letting me call in. As you all know, my best friend, and who is like a sister to me, has been very ill all year. But we got some really good news recently, and so signs of healing, which is a good thing. So we're flying high on that news right now. One thing I wanted to request, I know it's hard for us to look ahead. If you're like me, I can't even grocery shop lately. I go day by day. But I was wondering if we canceled a strategic planning meeting back in October, and I'm wondering if we can get another meeting like that on the schedule for 2021 in the new year, sooner than later, to prioritize things coming out of this COVID year and just looking ahead and what that means. And I haven't had time to connect with anybody about that, so I'm just putting that out there. And then I did have a question, and you may have said this because my volume goes in and out on this phone that I'm using. Is there, I guess, are we going to continue to allow kids to come to school with staff, or are we able to let staff work home remotely during this time?
What we have done as of today is we are showing flexibility in that regard. It is a risk situation. It was short notice, so I ask that we take that into consideration and allow our folks to continue to do that for this amount, for the next week or so. We are trying to work with, most people have figured that out, Ms. Hamilton, and have done their due diligence to care for that. The numbers were relatively low in that today, and we've made some efforts with Highlands Community Services. Now that we've transitioned, Dr. Noe and others have been, well, primarily him has been in contact with some lead officials there at the Community Services Agency where we provided childcare, and they're gonna turn on a dime and pivot and pull some things out of storage and work toward providing childcare for those that were engaged in that and had that before. To answer your question about working remotely, we plan at this point to continue with our schedule for this week as if we and having them there. Obviously on Wednesday, that's still a remote day, and we have reduced those days next week to 2 days of remote, and the principals are going to have the latitude to work with their staffs. The reason for that is for our staff members to certainly be there, to be available for any kind of instructional packets or anything, information that has to be delivered or given, and for the purposes of providing services to students in particular categories that must have that, and that could be in categories like special services or ESL. So in order to accommodate for those, we will have staff there two of the 5 days next week, and we'll leave that to the discretion of the principal to work that out. And the other time could be working remote. So 3 of those days will be remote. Many of our teachers have asked, if provided that the weather's good and we haven't put additional restrictions as to whether or not that they could come in for the purposes of connectivity, structure, those kind of things. I will say that out of the gate on Friday, I guess when we were on the Zoom call, and today, I have talked with our administrative staff about critical nature of the 0 gatherings. There should be no, obviously, faculty meetings or group gatherings of any kind of congregate in the school facilities. That folks should be working in isolation in their rooms for those protections, and work toward trying to make the provisions available for them to just to be as flexible as we can with our staff.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Hamilton?
Yes, I am a little concerned, and maybe this is out of our scope, of sending kids to a daycare when it's unsafe for us to be in school. And so that, I guess that's why I do ask about being able to work remotely for those reasons.
Well, and those accommodations have been made, either work remote on those days, additional day, and then also additional 2 days to have the option of working remotely. And the community services may not be available anyway, so that's why we made those accommodations. Part of the community service agreement or effort that we're trying to make is for the future as much as anything in the short term. It's more if we do or when we have to continue into a virtual setting, 100% virtual setting, if that would be available for our staff. So it's not so much, it's not just for the short term. The short term, we've made special accommodations and we'll continue to work with people. We've made that clear today. But in January, if by chance things change and it's not as, it is a manageable situation, but say, for example, we're either in all virtual or we begin to shift toward a hybrid or an in-person kind of arrangement, then those services will need to be there in place. And we will have already been in a situation where, from the health department's perspective, that it's more manageable, if that makes sense. I don't know if you all want to add anything else to that.
Okay, thank you. And that's it. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Certainly my thoughts go out to anyone who has been medically affected by the virus, either themselves or a family member, and also to those who have been affected by the virus without being sick. Because there's two groups that, that they all suffer. And obviously there's the only one ultimate suffering that you can get from this virus. But, there's all types of different situations. And I'll just stick by what I said in April. It will get worse before it gets better. And we're not even scratched the surface. Wait till the vaccine. Everybody thinks the vaccine is a cure-all. Wait till Dr. Wallace has to start dealing with personnel who decide not to get the virus, or the vaccine, excuse me. What are going to be their restrictions? What are going to be his legal responsibilities? Or is he going to require them to sign a waiver to work? Can we make them? Can we not? I don't know the answer to any of that, but I'm just saying it's going to get worse before it gets better, and it's no time soon. Hate to be so gloom.
A couple of really quick things. I want to give one more quick shout out to Mr. Lester and the technology team. I think that, we all know they've been doing a lot more than they had to do before, like everybody else. And I will confess that I was one of those who fell for one of the cybersecurity deals. But I will say that, as Mr. Lester was responding to my going, oh no, it was the fact that right after our last board meeting, I was sent an email with health statistics about, the coronavirus, and it was one of those deals where get us in our hearts and the things that we, are concerned about and worry about, and they're out to get us all. So I apologize publicly, and I hope that everyone else can learn from my mistake there. We've all learned in the past months that in-person school is essential for many of our students, and it's a privilege for our students and our people to be there. But it's a privilege that is earned by the activities and our behavior outside of school as well. And I just absolutely implore people to please remember that if we're going to get to go to school in person, we're all going to have to follow what we need to be doing right now. And that's distancing and avoiding crowds and wear a face covering. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to echo Dr. Brandon's sentiments about the Finance Committee. Thank you guys, gals, for helping us out there, and especially our employees. I want to thank those folks and And Mr. Ford passed it along, and we're thanking you with that greenback dollar, $1,250. I really know that helped out a lot of folks this year, and that 1% raise. You know, a lot of people will say, baby, well, that's not how well, you just wait till that old VRS kicks in on that 30th year. You'll really appreciate that. A lot of everybody will. Another thing, I'd like to thank the parents and the students tonight for coming in, and Coach Williams. I've been, you know, I hadn't been in their shoes in a situation like this, but I know they want to play, but we want them to be safe. That's the number one thing. We don't want anyone, I'm like Dr. I've been there. I've been quarantined for 14 days. I didn't have the virus, thank the Lord, but it's been 20-some days now, Dr. Brandon. But anyway, I've been quarantined for 14 days, but I do feel for folks that it's hit harder. They've passed away. I have friends and family. I have friends and family right now on a ventilator, and it's tough. Let's keep all those folks in our prayers. With Mr. Fleener there too, I'd like to echo, let's keep Miss Kaiser in our prayers and thoughts every day. I know it's tough. And one thing that no one has mentioned tonight, and I'm sure Mr. Music was going to say something. This time next year, hopefully we'll be back to normal. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to play Santa Claus in some of these schools, in these elementary schools. I'm going to get in there, I'm going to do that because that's something these kids enjoy. Alvin Crowder would come to my school with his wife, who she had dressed up as the elf Jingles, and she and Alvin would go into all the lower classrooms, and those kids would just have a big time. And let's just hope and pray. But this time next year, we'll be back to some normalcy, and we can do some things like that. And I just want that to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one other thing I want to say to the parents, we have not canceled anything. Like I said, we're suspending and postponing. And the thing about it is, let's just thank the good Lord we're not like those folks above, run over and above it's already zapped it. So there is hope at the end of that tunnel, hopefully. Thank you.
I want to thank our schools for all the work they've done and being able to keep students in school as long as we did. And that would have not been possible if folks hadn't have been doing what they were supposed to do, from the bus driver that picked the children up in the morning, that dropped them off that afternoon, the safety of the teachers watching the students, the aides, the custodians, cafeteria workers, the administration at schools, and certainly our school nurses and everything they've done. So it's not, unfortunately, it's not their fault that we're not being able to be in school, but I want to thank them for all of that and the support at central office and everyone what they've done. And I want to thank this board for the hard work we've done this year. It's been an emotional time. It's been a hard time. It's been a struggle. It's something that none of us have ever dealt with before, but we've had to hash through some things, and I know that not all of us have always agreed on exactly how something needs to be done, but we've always come together, and we've done what we need to do to get kids in school and keep kids in school and try to take care of our employees and thank them for what they've done. And just as Herschel used to say, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. So
yes, sir.
I hope all of you have a wonderful Christmas with your families and enjoy time with them and be safe. So looking forward to maybe a more productive new year in the future. But it's been a challenge, and I've told people it's been hard. But I think some of the adversities we went through has certainly made me a better leader. Having to deal with things that we didn't think we'd have to deal with. So, we've all learned something from it. And I think it'll make us all better in the future. So, I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. with that said, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board convenes in closed session after a 5-minute break for the purpose of discussing the following matters as authorized by section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia. Under section 2.2-371102, request for release from compulsory school attendance due to religious exemption, case number 30-34 for the 2020-2021 year. Section 2.2-3711A1, consider employment of specific individuals. Consider superintendent's document A, superintendent's document C, and also consider the resignation of specific individuals. Consider long-term medical leave of specific individual in case number 3 and case number 4. And consider specific individuals with non-teaching assignments to receive coaching supplements only and subject to VHSL approval and within the number of positions approved for coaching under section 2.2-3711A1 of the state of Virginia.
Second. Got a motion by Mr. Brooks and a second by Ms. Henderson. That we convene in closed session after a 5-minute break. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.